Daniel Carter adjusted the dim light on his helmet, its faint glow barely cutting through the oppressive darkness of the ancient chamber. The air was stale, tinged with the metallic scent of decay that clung to everything in this forgotten place. Beside him, Rachel Monroe knelt over a pile of crumbling debris, her gloved hands carefully brushing away layers of dust from what looked like a fragment of alien machinery. Their breathing echoed softly in their cums, the only sound breaking the eerie silence of the ruins. "Anything yet?" Daniel asked, his voice tight with anticipation. He had spent years chasing whispers of humanity's lost history, but nothing could have prepared him for this. This moon, orbiting a dying star at the edge of known space, held secrets far beyond anything he'd imagined. Rachel didn't answer immediately. Her focus was absolute, her movements deliberate as she uncovered more of the object. Finally, she leaned back and exhaled sharply. "It's some kind of interface," she said, her tone laced with both excitement and unease. "But it's not alien, not entirely." Daniel frowned and moved closer, his boots crunching against the brittle floor. When he saw the markings etched into the surface of the device, his stomach tightened. They weren't symbols of an alien language. They were unmistakably human. But these weren't modern characters, or even ones from Earth's distant past. They were something else. Entirely. Something advanced. Something terrifying. "This can't be right," Daniel muttered, running a scanner over the artifact. The readings confirmed what his eyes already told him. This technology was far beyond anything humanity should have been capable of creating millennia ago. And yet, there it was, a relic of a time when humans might have been more than just primitive wanderers on a single planet. As they worked together to activate the interface, fragments of data began to flicker across their screens. Holographic projections shimmered into existence, shaky and fragmented, but still legible. What they revealed made Daniel's blood run cold. Blueprints, detailed schematics for machines, designed to obliterate entire planets. Weapons so powerful, they could crack open worlds like eggshells. Rachel stared at the images, her face pale beneath the glow of her visor. "These aren't just weapons," she whispered. They single quotes, apocalyptic. Whoever built these wasn't thinking about conquering. They were thinking about erasing. Daniel nodded slowly, his mind racing. "And look here." He pointed to a line of text embedded within the schematics. It was written in archaic human script, but the meaning was clear. Project Shadow. Below it was a warning, stark and unambiguous. Asterisk use only as a last resort. Humanity depends on your restraint. Asterisk the weight of those words settled heavily between them. Someone, humanity itself, had created these horrors. But why? And more importantly, where had this knowledge gone? Why did no records exist of such devastating power? Before either of them could speak further, the ground beneath them trembled faintly. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and a low hum filled the chamber. The interface was still active, its systems responding to their presence. Suddenly, a new projection appeared, larger and clearer than the others. It showed a map of the galaxy, but not as it was now. This map depicted stars long dead, civilizations erased, whole sectors reduced to cosmic ash. "They used it," Rachel breathed, her voice trembling. "Whoever they were, they actually used these weapons." Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. If humanity had possessed such destructive capabilities in the past, what had stopped them from using it again? Or had someone simply hidden the knowledge away, hoping future generations would never rediscover it? The hum grew louder, almost deafening now. Lights flashed erratically around the chamber, and the holograms began to distort. Whatever they had awakened, it didn't seem happy to be disturbed. "We need to get out of here," Daniel said urgently, grabbing Rachel's arm. She hesitated, glancing back at the glowing interface one last time before nodding as they hurried toward the exit. Neither of them noticed the small drone silently detaching itself from the shadows. its sensors locking onto their coordinates. News of their discovery would spread faster than they could imagine, and soon, everyone in the galaxy would want a piece of what they had found. The galaxy was breaking apart, piece by piece. Once mighty empires that had ruled the stars with iron fists now crumbled under the weight of their own failures. The Terran Federation, which had once stood as a symbol of human unity and progress, was no exception. Its fleets were scattered, its resources depleted, and its leaders consumed by infighting. Star systems once thriving under its protection now fell prey to chaos, pirates, and worse. In the midst of this collapse, a new threat emerged, one more terrifying than any before it. The Valens, biomechanical beings whose origins remained shrouded in mystery, swept through the galaxy like a plague. Entire planets vanished without warning, their populations erased as if they had never existed. No one knew how they did it or why they chose certain targets, but fear spread faster than the invaders themselves. Refugees fled in droves, carrying stories of destruction so absolute that many doubted they were true until entire star systems went dark. Daniel Carter and Rachel Monroe had barely escaped the ruins on the moon with their lives, but word of their discovery traveled even faster than they could. Within days, encrypted messages began flooding their comms from every corner of the galaxy. Governments, warlords, mercenaries all wanted the same thing: the blueprints for the planet killers. Some promised wealth and safety, others made thinly veiled threats. Neither Daniel nor Rachel trusted any of them. "We can't let anyone get their hands on this," Rachel said firmly, as they hid aboard a derelict freighter, trying to stave off the grid. Her voice carried an edge of desperation. "If these weapons fall into the wrong hands, it won't just be the Valens we have to worry about." Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. He knew she was right. What they had uncovered wasn't just a weapon, it was a tool of extinction. Whoever controlled it could reshape the galaxy or destroy it entirely. But staying hidden wasn't easy. Every jump they made brought them closer to danger, and supplies were running low. They couldn't keep running forever. Then came the message from General William Hayes. It arrived unbidden, cutting through their secure channel with startling clarity. Hayes' face appeared on the screen, lined with age but still sharp and commanding. Behind him, the Terran Federation's emblem flickered faintly, a reminder of what humanity had once built and lost. "Dr. Carter, Dr. Monroe," Hayes began, his tone calm but firm. "We know what you've found, and we know what's at stake. Hand over the blueprints, and we'll protect you. Together, we can use this technology to stop the Valens and restore order to the galaxy." Rachel exchanged a glance with Daniel. His expression mirrored her skepticism. "You expect us to believe that?" She shot back, leaning toward the monitor. "Your order is what got us into this mess in the first place." Hayes didn't flinch. "Whether you trust me or not, you don't have a choice. If you refuse, there are others who won't hesitate to take what you've discovered and kill you in the process." Before they could respond, the transmission ended abruptly. A moment later, alarms blared throughout the ship. 3. Federation. Cruisers had dropped out of hyperspace, surrounding them. Escape was impossible. Reluctantly, Daniel and Rachel agreed to meet with Hayes, but only after disabling key sections of the blueprints. They wouldn't hand over everything, not yet. As they prepared to board a shuttle sent by the Federation, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Ethan Cole, a man with cold eyes and a reputation for ruthlessness, introduced himself as their escort. "I'm here to make sure nothing goes wrong," he said, his voice smooth but laced with menace. "Let's hope you two understand the stakes." Daniel clenched his fists, but said nothing. He glanced at Rachel, who looked equally uneasy. Whatever happened next, one thing was clear: they were no longer in control of their own fate. The galaxy was watching, and everyone wanted a piece of what they had unearthed. As the shuttle launched toward the waiting Federation fleet, Daniel stared out the window, at the endless expanse of stars. Somewhere out there, the Valens continued their relentless march. Humanity's greatest weapon might be the only thing capable of stopping them, but at what cost? The Federation cruiser was vast and cold, its metallic corridors humming with the quiet efficiency of a machine built for war. Daniel and Rachel followed Ethan Cole through the labyrinthine ship, their footsteps echoing against the polished floors. The air smelled faintly of oil and ozone, a reminder that this was no ordinary vessel. It was a weapon in its own right, designed to project power across the stars. As they walked, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Cameras mounted on the walls tracked their every move, and soldiers stationed at regular intervals stared straight ahead, their faces unreadable behind mirrored visors. She glanced at Daniel, who kept his eyes fixed forward, his jaw clenched tightly. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to say, not here, not now. Finally, they reached a large briefing room dominated by a holographic display table. General William Hayes stood waiting for them, his posture rigid and commanding. He gestured for them to sit, but neither Daniel nor Rachel complied. Instead, they remained standing, their arms crossed defensively. "Let's cut to the chase," Hayes said, his voice calm but firm. "You've uncovered something extraordinary, something that could turn the tide against the Valens. We need those blueprints." Rachel stepped forward, her tone sharp. "And what exactly do you plan to do with them? Build more planet killers? Start another war?" Hayes didn't flinch. "We're not interested in starting wars. We're trying to end one. The Valens are unlike anything we've ever faced. If we don't fight back with everything we have, they'll wipe us out. Is that what you want?" Daniel frowned. "There's a reason humanity buried these weapons in the first place. Do you even know what using them might cost?" Hayes leaned forward, his piercing gaze locking onto Daniel. "Do you think I don't understand the risks? But tell me this, when the Valens come for Earth, will you stand by and watch while billions die? Or will you use every tool at your disposal to stop them?" The room fell silent. Daniel and Rachel exchanged a glance, both knowing the truth in Hayes' words, but still unwilling to trust him. They had seen enough of humanity's mistakes to know how easily good intentions could spiral into disaster. Ethan broke the silence, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Enough talk." He stepped closer to the pair, his cold eyes narrowing. "You've got two choices: cooperate, or we take what we need by force. Either way, the outcome is the same." Rachel glared at him, her hands balling into fists. "If you think we're just going to hand over everything, you're wrong. We disabled parts of the data before we came here. Without us, you won't be able to make sense of it." For a moment, Ethan looked ready to snap, but Hayes raised a hand to stop him. The general sighed, rubbing his temples as if the weight of the galaxy rested solely on his shoulders. "Listen to me," he said, his tone softer now. "I'm not asking you to give up control. Work with us. Help us understand what you've found. Together, we can ensure this technology is used responsibly." But Daniel wasn't convinced. "Responsibly," he echoed bitterly. "That's not what the Federation does. You use people, resources, weapons, all in the name of order. How do we know this won't end the same way?" Hayes didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to the holographic display and brought up an image of a devastated Planet world, reduced to rubble, its atmosphere stripped away. "This is what the Valens leave behind," he said quietly. "No survivors, no hope. If we don't act, this will happen to every human colony, to Earth itself." Rachel swallowed hard, her resolve wavering. As much as she hated to admit it, Hayes had a point. The Valens weren't just a threat, they were an extinction event, and yet, trusting the Federation felt like playing with fire. Before she could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed overhead, bathing the room in an ominous glow. Ethan cursed under his breath and tapped his comm unit. Report, he barked. We've got intruders, came the reply. Mercenaries. They're targeting the lab where the data is stored. Hayes turned back to Daniel and Rachel, his expression grim. Looks like we're out of time. Decide now. Are you with us or against us? The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswerable. Outside the briefing room, chaos erupted as gunfire echoed through the halls. The galaxy's hunger for the planet killers had finally caught up with them, and there was no turning back. The sound of gunfire grew louder as Daniel and Rachel followed Hayes and Ethan through the twisting corridors of the cruiser. Soldiers rushed past them, their boots pounding against the metal floors as they moved to defend the ship. The mercenaries had breached the hull, and their goal was clear: the lab where fragments of the planet killer blueprints were stored. Rachel's heart raced as she tried to keep up with the group. Her mind was a whirlwind of fear and doubt. Could they trust Hayes and his crew, or were they just another faction willing to sacrifice everything for power? She glanced at Daniel, who looked equally uneasy. His hands were clenched into fists, his knuckles white with tension. We need to secure the data, Hayes barked over his shoulder as they ran. If those mercenaries get their hands on it, we're finished. Daniel frowned. You mean we are finished or humanity is? Hayes didn't answer. Instead, he gestured for Ethan to take point as they approached the lab. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a scene of chaos. Federation scientists scrambled to protect the servers, while security teams exchanged fire with heavily armed mercenaries. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and smoke filled the air. Get to the terminal, Hayes shouted, shoving Daniel and Rachel toward a workstation in the center of the room. Download everything you can onto this drive. We'll hold them off. Rachel hesitated, her eyes darting between the fighting and the console. What? If they destroy the data before we can copy it, then we're all dead, Ethan snapped, raising his weapon to fire at an advancing mercenary. Stop asking questions and start working. Daniel ignored the tension and focused on the task. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he accessed the fragmented files. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, each one a piece of the deadly puzzle. But something caught his eye. Series of warnings embedded deep within the data. They weren't just instructions for building the weapons. They were dire cautions about their use. This isn't just a weapon, Daniel muttered, his voice barely audible over the din of battle. It's a destabilizer. Using it could tear apart entire star systems, not just the target. Rachel leaned closer, her face pale. We can't let anyone use this, not even the Federation. Before they could discuss further, a loud explosion rocked the lab. Part of the ceiling collapsed, sending debris raining down. A mercenary burst through the smoke, his weapon trained on them. Ethan reacted instantly, firing a shot that sent the intruder sprawling to the ground. Hurry up, Ethan yelled, his voice strained. We can't hold them forever. Rachel grabbed the portable drive and inserted it into the console. The download began, but it was agonizingly slow. Outside, the battle raged on. More mercenaries poured into the room, forcing Hayes and his team to retreat closer to the workstation. They're overwhelming us, one of the soldiers shouted, his voice cracking with panic. Hayes gritted teeth and fired another round, his movements precise but desperate. Just a little longer. He called out to Daniel and Rachel. Finally, the transfer completed. Rachel yanked the drive free and shoved it into her pocket. We've got it, she yelled, but their relief was short-lived. A massive explosion tore through the far wall, sending a shockwave rippling through the lab. The lights flickered, plunge of the room into near darkness. Through the haze of smoke and dust, a new figure emerged, tall, masked mercenary leader, carrying a plasma rifle. You shouldn't have come here, the leader growled, his voice distorted by a modulator. He raised his weapon, aiming directly at Daniel and Rachel. Ethan stepped forward, shielding them with his body. Back off, he snarled. his own weapon pointed at the mercenary. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, without warning, the mercenary fired. Chaos erupted as everyone dove for cover. In the confusion, Daniel grabbed Rachel's arm and pulled her toward a side exit. They couldn't stay, they had to escape. As they fled into the corridor, the sounds of battle faded behind them. But they knew the fight wasn't over. Whoever controlled the planet killers would stop at nothing to claim them. And now, Daniel and Rachel were running blind, carrying a secret too dangerous for anyone to possess. Daniel and Rachel stumbled through the dimly lit corridors of the cruiser, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. Behind them, the sounds of battle echoed faintly, shouts, explosions, and the relentless hum of energy weapons. They didn't look back. There was no time. Every second counted if they wanted to survive. This way, Daniel whispered urgently, pulling Rachel toward a maintenance hatch. His hands trembled as he pried it open, revealing a narrow access tunnel. The air inside was stale and cold, but it offered a chance to escape the chaos engulfing the ship. Rachel hesitated for a moment, glancing over her shoulder. "What about Hayes and Ethan?" she asked, her voice tinged with guilt. "We can't just leave them." "They made their choice," Daniel replied sharply, though his tone softened when he saw the conflict in her eyes. "We can't help them now. Our job is to keep the blueprints safe." Reluctantly, Rachel nodded and climbed into the tunnel. Daniel followed, sealing the hatch behind them. The narrow space was cramped and dark, forcing them to crawl on hands and knees. The distant vibrations of the ongoing fight reverberated through the walls, a grim reminder of how close danger still loomed. After what felt like hours, they emerged into an abandoned cargo bay. The room was eerily silent, its contents long since stripped away. A single shuttle sat idle in the corner, its engines powered down but intact. It was old and battered, but it represented their only hope of escape. "We can't fly that thing without being detected," Rachel said, eyeing the shuttle warily. "The Federation will track us the moment we leave." Daniel frowned, running a hand through his sweat-drenched hair. "We don't have a choice. If we stay here, we're dead." Worse, as they debated their next move, a low rumble shook the floor beneath them. The mercenary assault had breached deeper into the cruiser, and the ship's systems began to fail. Warning lights flashed sporadically, casting eerie shadows across the room. Time was running out. Just as they prepared to board the shuttle, a voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention, intruders. Surrender the data, or you won't leave this ship alive." It wasn't Hayes or Ethan, it was the mercenaries. Somehow, they had taken control of the cruiser's communication system. Daniel cursed under his breath, knowing they were walking into a trap no matter what they did. "Get ready," he muttered, gripping the portable drive tightly. "If they find us, we fight." Before they could act, the cargo bay doors hissed open. To their surprise, it wasn't a mercenary who entered but a woman. She wore patched-up armor and carried a blaster, rifle slung casually over her shoulder. Her face was lined with scars, but her sharp green eyes held a spark of intelligence. "You two look like you could use some help," she said dryly, stepping closer. "Name's Zoe Harper. Heard you've got something everyone wants." Rachel instinctively stepped back, her hand moving toward the pocket holding the drive. "Who are you working for?" she demanded. Zoe raised her hands in mock surrender. "Nobody. I run with the Nomads, a group of folks who've seen enough of the galaxy's greed to know better than to trust anyone, including you." Daniel exchanged a glance with Rachel. They didn't have many options left. "Why should we trust you?" he asked cautiously. "Because right now, you don't have anyone else," Zoe replied bluntly. "And because I'm offering you a ride off this death trap. Take it or leave it." After a tense pause, Daniel nodded. "Fine, but if you try anything, I won't," Zoe interrupted, smirking slightly. "Besides, I've got my own reasons for wanting those blueprints out of the wrong hands." With Zoe's help, they quickly prepped the shuttle for launch. As they lifted off, the cruiser erupted into flames behind them, consumed by internal explosions. Neither Daniel nor Rachel looked back. Their focus was ahead on finding a way to ensure that planet killers never fell into the wrong hands again. But as they settled into the cramped cockpit, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they'd only traded one set of dangers for another. Zoe might not work for the mercenaries or the Federation, but she clearly had her own agenda, and the galaxy was watching, waiting to see who would emerge victorious in the race for ultimate power.